Hi, I'm Alexandra Malan, a journalist with PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs. I'd like to welcome today Michael Pollock, CEO of the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Alexandra.
Can you please tell us about the work you do at the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance?
DBSA's mission is to provide hope, help, support, and education for people living with depression and with bipolar. We are a national nonprofit that was started over 35 years ago by two women who lived with bipolar. One of those women, Rose Kurland, is still associated with our organization today. Marilyn Weiss has since passed away. Rose and Marilyn wanted to meet other people who lived with a mood disorder just like themselves. They wanted to share experiences and get support from one another. So they went to their doctor and they asked, can you connect us with other people with similar lived experience? And so the first support group actually started in Rose's home. Today, more than 35 years later, DBSA has over 500 support groups every week taking place all over the country, now in a virtual setting because of the pandemic. But our work, our mission is still based on the essence of what Rose and Marilyn started, and that was empowering people with mood disorders to talk about their experience, gain support, and empower them to speak out for better treatment. And that's what we still do to this day.
Today's conversation is all about the added strain the pandemic has put on the mental health system and about helping youth and parents find resources. How can one go about finding a resource in their area? And how do these support groups work?
Well, before the pandemic, our 130 chapters around the country would offer support groups in their local community. Sometimes they were in churches, sometimes hospitals, local community centers. Today, because of the pandemic, all of our support groups are run virtually, just about all of them, I should say. Nationally, in addition to the support groups run by our chapters, we run support groups out of our national organization. And you can find the schedule for those support groups at our website, dbsalliance.org. You can also find the support groups run by our chapters on our website as well. They've listed all of their support groups on the site so that if you wanted to find something closer to home, you can do that as well.
That sounds awesome. And how exactly do these support groups work?
The support groups are based on an evidence-based practice, which is a scientifically based practice known as peer support. People with similar lived experiences gaining support from one another. That's the whole concept of peer support. Our support groups are facilitated mostly by volunteers, in some cases by paid individuals. They all are individuals who live with depression or live with bipolar, unless they're a support group for family and friends, which I'll talk about a little bit later. The support groups are safe and they're confidential. They typically begin with the facilitator doing some kind of a check-in, just really helping people stay centered and grounded and sharing a little bit about how they're feeling as the meeting gets underway. After the check-in, the discussion could focus on a specific topic. That topic could be based on what the facilitator hears in the check-in. There might be a commonality, common issue or challenge that the participants are going through. Other times, the facilitator may identify a particular subject that they want to describe or discuss in the group. That could be stigma and how participants are feeling about the stigma of sharing with others that they live with a mood disorder. The topic could also be about techniques or best practices, coping mechanisms to better manage somebody's mental health. So it could really depend on the group. It could depend on the week and what's going on with the participants. What we often hear from the participants who have attended a group is that they feel more hopeful after being engaged in a support group. Some of them will talk about the sense of community that they get from being around people who are experiencing similar situations so that they feel less alone.
What should a parent, caregiver, or adult do if they see a young person struggling with their health?
So I think it's important to remember that while growing up, children and teenagers also, they all have different emotions at different times, and they'll have sometimes changes in their personality while they're figuring out their identity. And if their emotions seem erratic in a ways that starts to affect things like their school or their relationships, It's important to address it in a compassionate way and try not to ignore it. If the person is experiencing a mood disorder, they're probably not going to grow out of it. So I would avoid attitudes or words that could inadvertently send that kind of a message. If you want to understand if a young person is struggling with a mental health condition, consider their individual baseline. Have they normally been a talkative person and now they're withdrawn and they're feeling less interested in socializing? That might be a red flag to pay attention to. If there's a dramatic shift in their behavior or their personality, that could be a sign that something else is going on. It's important to ask direct questions and then be prepared to listen and validate those feelings. Good communication will allow you to have more awareness and then take necessary steps. I also think children will feel safer knowing that you're asking them questions and that you care and are sending that kind of a message. I'd also say that the best way to discuss mental health with a younger person, it's really going to be dependent on their age and their developmental level. So before beginning those conversations, do some self-reflecting to help you as the adult, as the caregiver, really have a clear idea of what is it that you do and do not understand about mental health yourself. If you're talking to younger kids, I would explain that it's normal to feel different emotions like anger and sadness and anxiety. These are emotions that kids may or may not be used to articulating and putting words to. Validate that all kids have these feelings from time to time. As an adult, it's when those emotions get really intense, they last for really long periods of time, and they start to interfere in the child's life, whether that's their schoolwork, whether that's their friendships, whether it's relationships with family members. That's when you want to find someone professional to talk to and for your child to talk to. We actually have a program on our website called the Mood Crew for Kids. And it's really first and foremost to help parents understand and remind them that all emotions are natural. Being angry is not necessarily good or bad. It's just one of the emotions we as human beings go through. And I think it's a good way and a good reminder for parents to think that way, because we don't want to accidentally shame a child based on the emotions that they might be experiencing. In terms of treatment options, there's lots of different treatments for depression and bipolar. And so it's important to get educated on some of them. Counseling, talk therapy for kids can be one avenue. Finding support, talking to other parents is another. And sometimes medication can be the right avenue. So it's important to talk to a pediatrician. And also, if you're going to do some research, make sure those websites that you're looking at are pretty reputable. We do offer a community, an online community for parents to get support and information from one another. You can find that community on our website, dbsalliance.org. It's called the Balanced Mind Parent Network. So that might be a helpful resource to some parents. At the end of the day, be sure to make informed decisions. It'll boost your own confidence as a parent or caregiver, and it'll help your child get what he or she is in need of.
Peer support can be critical when talking about one's mental health. What is your advice to a young person to help a friend or schoolmate in need?
I think when you're talking to maybe older children in particular, and teens are talking to one another, young people are talking to each other, that it's really important to show empathy and connection and the ability to listen. Anytime we're feeling out of control or having thoughts of harming ourselves or sometimes even suicidal thoughts, it's important to do a couple things. One, to take those emotions very seriously and show that you're there to offer support. If somebody is thinking of a death or suicide, teens want to definitely find an adult that they can trust to get involved in the situation. You can also call different helplines. DBSA, you can text at 741-741. There's also a 1-800 number that is available called 1-800-273-TALK. So knowing that there are resources out there for for children and teens, especially in really sensitive situations like this. It's important to take them seriously and to find an adult or find a resource to help those individuals. Again, there are a lot of websites out there. Make sure they're reputable websites that'll offer information around mental health. And I can't emphasize enough, talking about mental health is a great way to reduce shame and stigma associated with what someone is going through. Avoiding talking about it really doesn't help the situation.
Do you have any advice for young people feeling isolated and alone about the past 2 years? And how is that advice different from what you might have suggested pre-pandemic?
Well, we all know before COVID, there was already a mental health crisis in this country, and that young people were really dealing with some important issues. There's a lot of research that points to the mental health crisis among youth related to screen time and social media, increased pressures at school, and even families' economic uncertainty can really trickle down and impact a young person. You know, these are the factors that have really impacted the mental health of Generation Z, and I don't think we fully understand the impact yet. We know these concerns have obviously been compounded since the start of the pandemic. There was actually a recent study out of England published by the Journal of American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. And they noted that children and adolescents are likely to experience high rates of depression and anxiety long after this current lockdown and social isolation ends. And clinical service needs will probably see a big spike in demand even once the pandemic has come to a close. So if you're a young person listening to this, my advice for you is not to scare you, but to really kind of like take the right steps to help manage your mental health. Two things I'll point out is manage the day-to-day. Living with a mood disorder can be challenging, even without the pressures of the pandemic. In stressful times, having a daily routine cannot be underestimated. Following a consistent time to go to bed, consistent time to wake up, when you eat, what you eat, making sure you're getting physical activity in your day, even if you're not able to be out because of the pandemic, are all steps we can take to help manage our day-to-day and our mental health. It gives us that internal clock and creates that rhythm of stability and helps our mood. The second piece of advice is tap into the power of your community. When we're socially isolated, getting support is more critical than ever. This could mean creating a group of friends that meets online. It could mean finding a community with others that are going through similar experiences. Later this year, DBSA will be offering support groups for teens, and we already offer support groups for young adults as a way for individuals to connect with one another. Just that simple presence of being with other people with similar lived experiences can really make a difference. If you're in a family and you're raising a child who has a mood disorder, there are also support groups for family and friends so that you can get support and reassurance. And again, eliminate that feeling that you're going through this all by yourself.
If there was one message you could give youth facing mental health challenges, what would it be?
First of all, I would say I'm genuinely sorry that you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And again, you're not alone, even when it feels that way at times. So my message to you would be to reach out to someone that you trust for help and support, whether that's a caring adult, a teacher, a parent, or whether it's one of your friends. But if you're not feeling well, please reach out to an adult who you trust and who can give you the direction and support that you need.
One of the main goals of the Well-Beings Tour is to make mental health something that is openly discussed among young people. Has your organization noticed a shift in people's willingness to discuss mental health? Are you noticing different trends among different age groups?
Yes, we have seen a shift. I think the millennials have been called at times the therapy generation, and I think that's I think that's a very good thing. It's why it's so important for parents and caregivers to address their own stigmatizing thoughts around mental health. Young people may be more open with their peers, but facing the kind of challenges without that caring, knowledgeable adult, at best, it can be scary for kids. And at worst, sadly, it can be fatal. Being diagnosed with depression, being diagnosed with bipolar as a teen can often feel like a life sentence. I think it's easy for young people to think they're always going to feel this way and that they're not going to be able to have the kind of life that they may have hoped for, but it's simply not true. We actually created a blog and a podcast series to help reinforce this message. It's called I'm Living Proof, a letter to my younger self. These are young adults who live with mood disorders, writing letters back to their teen self and what they want their teen self to have known, or wish they would have known when they were a teen. This is a way to share really inspiring stories of young adults to reinforce that they are living proof that they can overcome even during very difficult times. And the blog, in the form of a letter to their younger self, is designed so that the audience, those of us listening to the podcast or reading their essays, will get that perspective of change over time and how our perspective on what living with a mood disorder can evolve into in a very positive way over time. It's a way for individuals to learn and to grow what it means to live with and recover from depression and bipolar. We've created this collection also as a way to create community for people, young people in particular, to really provide hope and to provide some comfort, and also a way for them to seek resources. Those podcasts are free and are located on our website.
How can individuals across the country access DBSA as a resource?
We try to keep all of our resources available on our website, and just about all of our resources are for free. dbsalliance.org. You can also follow us on social media, and I would invite all of you to look for us on Facebook and Instagram and other social media platforms.
Can you tell us about the DBSA Mood Crew?
Sure. The Mood Crew is a great collection of 10 almost cartoon-like figures to represent different moods that children experience, that we all experience for that matter. But the Mood Crew is really designed for kids ages 4 to 10. They're moods like happy and excited, or scared, or sad, embarrassed. Moods like confident, angry, worried, lonely. And there's even one called calm. So these are different emotions that children go through that are very natural, as I said earlier. The Mood Crew moods are designed to remind parents that these different emotions are very natural for kids to go through. And we offer lots of resources for a parent or a teacher or a counselor to use with children, games and exercises to really help them articulate these different feelings that they are experiencing. What I call make these moods talkable for kids so they can express what they're feeling. We launched the Mood Crew just over a year ago, and already over 120,000 individuals have accessed them. And the Mood Crew resources are one of the many free resources available through DBSA.
During the pandemic, there have been positives and negatives regarding the use of technology to connect us to one another. What have you observed at DBSA through your support groups and for the mental health support system as a whole?
Well, like a lot of organizations, we were challenged by the pandemic, and we weren't exactly anticipating it. There's a lot of digital mental health resources out there, and that's a good thing. They've really successfully helped lower a lot of barriers to access to care, cost barriers, stigma, lack of providers, unfortunately. The demand for mental health resources has really increased dramatically during this pandemic, and we're no different. With our support groups, our online support groups, we've seen the demand increase 2.5 times since the start of this pandemic to what it was previously. So we've added a lot more online support groups to address that need. As a result, before the pandemic, just our national online support groups, we were serving about 50 people a week, and now we're serving about 450 a week. And there's a waiting list that we are yet to be able to meet. So this pandemic has definitely seen a big spike. So beyond support groups, we've added even more resources that are available through our website. We created a COVID-19 resource center that has podcasts and videos, mental health updates, and links, whether they're links to resources or links to understand what's covered by insurance or financial support.
It sounds like an incredible resource. Thank you.
Alexandra, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. Mental health in this country is talked about and underrepresented, and the work that you're doing through the PBS Student Reporting Lab is really important. So thank you.